No,
So,
you're
and
good.
so you get any-
You good, as long as you can, Marge, can you hear me?
Okay, screen should be good.
Marge, can you hear everybody?
Now I can.
Okay. Okay.
So speak loud.
Speak loud. Did you get any?
Nope,
We got
no.
one. Because I'm like, I can do one, I don't know if I can do multiple over here. He's gonna pull up Trent, so he's ready to go, but we're good. Perfect. So Alicia, are we
Yep,
live?
we're good, I'm just getting Trent up here.
Okay. I will call the meeting to order. It is, we're a couple minutes, are at 6:01. I will take a motion to approve the agenda with one amendment, that there is policy number 7, that's just a duplicate of 6C, which 7 is, it was more so just a typo of a duplicate, so it's actually one agenda item. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
With your amendment, so move.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So with that, I have not received any public comment for tonight. And neither has Mark, so we will move ahead to the 2023 extracurricular code of contact, and Trent will be doing that momentarily.
All right, there we go. Sorry, Trent, I think I
Hi,
got you
Trent.
now.
Yeah.
Can you hear us okay?
Yep.
All right, cool.
All right. So tonight, we have the first reading of our extracurricular code of conduct for the 22-23 school year. We've tried to bump this ahead into June each year, so that way when we open registration July 1st for fall sports and activities, we can hit the ground running with the updated code. In total this year, there's really not a whole lot of updates to this. We've done quite a bit of work over the past 4 years or so, getting our code into a good place that acknowledges different areas such as academics and attendance, behavior, AODA, and then just general operations for our programs. This is something, again, that's annually brought forward just for approval. We are required by the WIA to have a code of conduct, and there are certain things that we do have to have in there. The main things that are updates for this year, typically every year we update the specific dates for when grades are pulled. We updated our attendance requirements for the language just to outline truancy status implications for that. We felt like it always was addressed, but this just helps firm that up even more. And then the last thing that we included on there is more just for general operations, is information about name, image, and likeness, which is more of a college thing that's going on, where athletes at the college level can profit from their name, image, and likeness. Technically, as it stands right now in the state of Wisconsin, kids at the high school level cannot, but we wanted to make sure that that was there for informational purposes, but also acknowledge that that could change at some point. I know the WIA has a board of control meeting at the end of June. I don't know that that's something that they're going to change. Other states have, but again, we just wanted to put that on people's radar because that was very new as of last summer.
Okay. Anything else or questions for Trent?
Nope.
So this will come back.
Yep, this will come back at our next meeting, if nobody has any questions to move forward.
All right,
Thanks,
If you
Trent.
have questions between now and then, just feel free to reach out, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Trent.
Have a good night.
Thanks.
Bye.
Okay, then moving on, we'll look at the policy reviews. There's 3 different policies for tonight. Mark, did you want to touch on that?
Sure, just very briefly, the first one was put together by our, the reading instructional goals, the kindergarten assessment policy. There was a memo in the weekend update that related to that. The 24-14, the human growth and development, that was reviewed by our physical education and health people, and there's no change, they're not recommending any changes to that policy. And our wellness policy was reviewed by our employee council, and they're not recommending any changes to that policy, so those are, all three are good to go.
And if you're clicking on those links, if you can't get them, go in the board docs to get.
So the reading instructional goals and kindergarten assessment, I believe there's supposed to be a report by Mindy there.
It's attached.
I've requested access a couple of times and I still don't have it.
Yeah.
I don't know who owns the document, if it's Mindy or if it's someone
It
else.
just doesn't open up for you?
It says request access.
For none of you?
Yeah. Right.
We request, because I think I did it maybe Friday and then yesterday for sure, you know.
So if Mindy owns the document and
Probably
she's
does.
not checking her, Alicia, if you're an editor, I think you can share it with us.
Well, here, I've got it right here. Let me forward it right to you here.
Okay, try it right now.
Thank you.
Yep. I just don't see those requests. If it-
Right.
Yeah.
There, yep, it's coming up now.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm, yep.
Was everybody able to pull it up?
Now we are,
Yeah,
yep.
perfect.
So you sent it out?
No, it was Mindy's, but she made me an editor, so I'm able
Okay.
to change the, like, who can see it.
I just sent it too. Got it?
She beat you, so we're going with Alicia.
That's fine. I get roasted on my technology ability last, by Shannon, last Friday.
But it was conducted annually, and then here is her report with that. Any questions for the policy, the 3 policy reviews? Do you want some time to look over that?
Yeah, give just a second.
Well, those will come back next. the end of the
Well, they don't
month.
need to be approved, they just.
They're
have
just
to-
information items.
But Alicia, you have access to the documents in the board documents. You know how there's that heading that says when they were adopted and when they were revised? If you could add to the bottom of that heading, last reviewed, and then we can put today's meeting date there, and then we'll have the documentation that we've met the guidelines established by state statute.
Okay.
And reviewing them annually. That'd be great, thank
Okay.
you.
Yep.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move forward. If you guys have questions for that, we can come back to it. So next, because 7 was amended, we'll go to the 22-23 employee handbook. Jody, are you ready?
Yeah, Alicia, do you want to just bring it up? Maybe just click
Yep.
on.
Or is that?
Will you just, if I click on this, does it work?
I don't know if,
Oh, if you just open that up.
you want it just on the smart board?
Yeah, okay, just open it up. Really, I just need to know if anybody has any questions. I mean,
I thought you were gonna read it to us.
yeah. I have updated the link in there for the acknowledgements so that as of July 1, we'll start using this with our new hires, reviewing with everybody. And then when the staff all comes back in the fall, each building goes through to make sure every one of their people acknowledges receipt of it. And then it's a living document, so if we find a policy or a process or any type of update that we need to do, then I would bring that to the board if it's of content value. You know, if I have the spelling wrong of somebody's name or something, obviously we'll just edit it. But if it's anything that would require board approval or board action, we would bring it back on a work session. And then, Alicia, will you just scroll
Yep.
down for me? Then, once it's approved, we can do last updated and the date. So, that then we can just track and share out with employees if a policy was changed. Or if we change a salary schedule, they're linked in here, we have changed the links with board approval, you know, that kind of stuff. All I have done right now, that if you guys approve it at the end of the month with the regular session, effective July 1, I will change the names that I have kind of highlighted in the directory, and that was just so we all understood what I was talking about, and so it reminds me to get that done. So, but that's all I had on it. If there's any questions, I can answer them. It's pretty straightforward.
So really, Jody, other than those name changes, nothing else has changed in that?
No, not at this time, not at this time.
Is there a reason there's a link to the non-certified staff and not the certified staff?
There should be the teacher salary schedule in there. If there's not a link, it's a broken link, there should be a link.
Sorry. I don't
It's
know.
gonna be part 3, I believe, Alicia, or maybe part 2, section 2, if you keep going.
Keep
This
going.
is all district employees. Yeah, keep going. This is still all employees. Okay, staff with contracts. And then, let's see where we see anything about compensation.
I clicked on them today, I know they're there.
Yeah, here, click
There's
on
Wage schedule.
wage schedule right here for me.
And then if
And
you click on teacher pay schedule.
Yeah, teacher pays.
Oh, sorry, within that?
Yep,
Okay.
right there. So there should be our 21-22 teacher salary schedule.
And then the
Where was it? Section 9? No.
part
That's sick
2.
leave.
Part 2, section 9. So make sure you're in part 2.
Oh, thank you.
The first part is for all employees, second part goes to teachers, or any of our certified staff on contract. And then we go to supervisory support staff, and then we go to support staff, and
First
then,
line.
yep.
Nice.
Are we finding it?
Yeah. I
Oh.
don't know what I was looking at before.
So, yeah, so if the board approves a salary schedule, something different than what's linked here, I won't necessarily bring back the motion to link the new salary schedule, I would just update the link. Does that make sense? Okay, so.
And do you want to show them where the non-certified staff salary schedule is?
That's the one I was on.
You were able to find, yeah, so, but Alicia, if you go to
Section 7 of part
So I'll,
4, I think.
oh, I'm like in it,
that's okay, go back to your,
this link.
yeah, that's fine, go back to the index. So, and then you're gonna go to,
Support staff.
yeah, section 3 or 4, keep scrolling down. It's gonna be a ways down, it might be on like page. Okay, so, yep, keep going here. So then we get to supervisory support staff, that's the part 3, so that's your year-round support staff, like myself, Alicia, administrative assistants, so if you keep going.
All the way to part 4.
Okay.
There you go. And it's in section 7.
There you go.
Yep.
Down.
Section 7, so this is 2, so you're
Oh,
gonna keep
oh.
going to 7.
7.
There you go.
Right there.
Oh,
Oh.
sorry, section 9, wage schedule.
Okay.
This one?
Yep. So this is everybody that is not on the teacher's schedule. So we start with the lunch and recess aide at pay grade 102, and it goes all the way through the superintendent pay grade on this schedule. So.
anybody have any questions for Jody regarding the employee handbook? Awesome. Thank you,
Okay.
Jody.
Yep.
Thank you.
So then this will,
Go to the business session on our next meeting. And then we're gonna switch the next two, right, Mark?
Well, I think
Just
we'll do,
the order?
I think we'll do, combine them.
Okay, perfect.
so Dave's
So
gonna-
we can have the district compensation and the budget information that will be put together.
Yeah, so I'll start in with a little budget discussion. Our procedure in Somerset is we approve a snapshot of our budget for the next year in June. It's not required by statute. We have to do it at the budget hearing in September, but it's our practice to do it. We want to keep checking in throughout the process. And so I'm talking tonight a little bit about the factors that go into that budget that will be then at the business meeting later this month, which will have the summary function that you see for expenditure and the summary of revenues by source as well, where we're at as of right now in June. So we put together a document, you can turn that on, with some of the key factors, some of the bigger items on the revenue side and the expenditure side that affect our budget. This is not all-inclusive. There will be some things that we would expect to see decreases in next year, and we'll budget as such. Probably legal expenditure, probably work comp insurance. We're still waiting on some of our property insurance renewal and some other things. So there'll be some things that will be cost reductions. There'll be a few things that are probably going to be cost increases. These are just some of the bigger factors, and so we're going to keep refining it as we go. And we still have to see where we end up with this year, because this year we're relying on our federal revenues so much that we need to see, are we coming in as we budgeted? Through the Q3 budget to actual report, it did seem like we were still on budget, not necessarily coming in under budget. If we were to come in under budget, then we would have that additional federal revenue that we didn't use this year to apply next year. So there's still some things that need to work out as we're going through the process where we're going to be able to refine our numbers going forward. So all that being said, if you look at this document, the left-hand most column, the revenues, some of those key factors, we have and have had since we first budgeted this about $400,000 less in federal ESSER money next year than we have for this year, just based on our total allocation, mostly from ESSER 3. The revenue limit right now for next fall, if we're using the same student FTE count as the previous September, which is our convention, that's what we do year over year, we're about $45,000 less. So on the revenue side, some of the bigger factors, we're just looking at $445,000 less in revenue for next year. On the expenditure side, so the middle column, the attrition and largely the unfilled FTE for teachers, we're seeing a savings at this point of about $360,000. As you saw from Mark, we did get our official renewal for health insurance. That was great. I mean, it's flat, so that's not an additional cost. However, our contracts and especially utilities, our big contracts, custodial, transportation, and then utility costs, especially gas costs, are increasing. We're projecting about $235,000 increasing there. And so just across that line then, total revenue, total expenditure. So revenue, we're saying with these factors, the revenue is going to be less, and with these factors, the expenditure will be a bit less as well, $125,000 less, just with these factors. So net, we're saying deficit 320. That's where we're starting with. Now, when we talk about compensation, our regular steps that we progress through our salary schedules, what is assumed, that cost is $170,000. And so assuming we do that, we end up at this point in time with a snapshot, our deficit about $490,000. Now we got the request to say, what does it look like if we add 3% for everybody? And we addressed that a few different ways. They ended up very similar in cost. The first being, what if we took the salary schedules, gave steps, and added 1.5 to each? Now, all non-teachers, the steps are 1.5. So adding 1.5 to the cells gets you really close to 3%. The teachers, the newer teachers, when they step, it's 3.5, then 3, then 2.5, then 2, then 1.5, and then finally 1. And so there's a range of percentages starting with higher. If it's the first few steps at 3.5, those teachers would see 5%, a little over. Down to, if we're adding 1.5 to the schedule, the people who are at the top lane get just that 1.5. Everybody else gets at least 3 or more. And the other option being, let's just give everybody 3%, so no steps, everybody 3% on your cell. And just with the interplay with how this works, the number of specifically teachers, either moving or staying at the bottom, they do end up pretty similar in overall cost, either $313,000 or $321,000, giving us at this moment in time those deficits of $630,000 and $640,000. Any questions about this document, how it's laid out?
I did email it to Marge while we've been talking, so in case she was trying to follow along.
Thank you.
Marge, did you have any questions? Did you get it in your email?
No. I'll look at my email. for
Okay.
it, But I couldn't hear him very well, but I can look at it later.
Okay.
So steps in 1.5, and no steps in 3. What do, I guess I don't fully understand the step structure, and you kind of explained just now, but what makes the most sense for everyone?
So,
Especially with just how economies change.
right, so you're asking, how do we get everybody to 3%?
Well, how do we make a difference for everybody? I guess that's all, whatever that means.
Well,
So
inherently,
if
when
we're-
you just put it on the schedule, lifting cells, the top end does not get what everyone else gets through the schedule. So I don't know if we'd say the most equitable dollar
Well, I'll have Jody.
way to do it is to put 3% on everyone.
So no step and 3%.
Right.
That's the most equitable.
Is that
Well,
what-
it depends, there's different approaches with teacher compensation, where sometimes, if you're saying we all get the same percentage, then yeah, that's true. If you're saying our more highly compensated teachers have already gotten more highly compensated, we want to move our newer teachers who are earning less quicker, that's why that schedule looks like that, where the first steps are a higher percentage per step, and the last step is 1%, and then there's a maximum. So what I was gonna say is, if we're adding 1.5 to the cell, then the newer teachers will benefit more. And the teachers who are at the max get 1.5, not 3. But if you want everybody to get the same percentage, you're saying, we're talking about inflation, let's talk about a percentage for everybody, then 3% for everybody does that.
But ultimately, without a step, we just fall behind into the next year, potentially, right?
Well, so a step doesn't necessarily equal a year that you've been here. What we're looking at ultimately is what is the dollar amount that you're taking home. And so if everybody gets 3%, then they get 3% more. If the people at the maximum only get 1.5, they get 1.5 more, and they're not moving a step because they're already at the max. But newer teachers that are getting the bigger percentages would get more if we're adding that to the way I look at it is it's a grid that has numbers. It doesn't necessarily equate to years. It equates to a chart. This is how I find where I'm at. Ultimately, what we're talking about is how much will each person be taking home next year and how much will that increase be? Does that make sense?
So STEP will be more beneficial to newer teachers
Yeah.
So-
at the expense of the more experienced teachers.
Correct.
And 3% would give them more out of the newer teachers.
Correct. Everybody gets 3% of what they make. So if you look at the schedule, brand new teacher, 42,900, you get 3% more of that, or the max 73,342, you get 3% more of that. You know, so it's definitely a bigger dollar amount.
With no steps.
That's with no, that's the no step option. That's just 3% for everybody.
You know, whenever you're looking at percentages, you know, the higher your salary is, the more money that equates to. And if you're looking at steps and 1.5%, you can see those steps in the early years. That's a 3.5% increase between steps. And then you add 1.5%, you're looking at a 5% total. But again, it's a percentage of a smaller amount of money. What has created much consternation in the past and a lot of problems with staff morale is that when you don't give steps and then you hire new staff and you put the new staff on the salary schedule, giving them full credit for their years of experience, you can end up with staff who have the same amount of experience, but somebody who's new to the district could be placed higher on the salary schedule because of not having a step for a year. Is there anything you wanted to add to that, Dave?
I think that that would be, that description is applicable for Act 10, certainly for the newest hires, the step one, lane one teachers. Every year, year over year, the convention made it such that if you were hired last year at a certain dollar amount, you get the percentage, the CPIU, and that's your new amount, but that's also where we hire brand new teachers at. And so that compressed year over year for the brand new hires. But for people who are not in step one, lane one, it wasn't as big of a factor. I think there's always a handful of people that are outliers. You see a principal says, we had 2 candidates, I can't hire one of them. I have one choice to fill this position that we need. And sometimes you will have somebody who gets more coming in than somebody with equitable experience who is here. That happens in every district. Those are not the most common placements. Those happen and have happened in the past every now and then. They're outliers. But if you are looking at those people and saying that's where everybody should be, then yeah, you say, we'll look at this. We have a big gap to make up or something.
Did we look at everyone making their step and 3%?
No.
That's way,
That would be more.
right.
Just add 170 to the top.
Because really then if you're
A
in
little more, I
steps
guess.
With the percent.
2, 3, 4, I mean, really 2 and 3, then you're gonna be making less, giving a 3% on schedule versus taking a step.
Correct. Yep, because they're automatically getting 3.5, advancing through step 3.
Mark?
Just a couple comments here, you see the numbers, how they lay out there, for me, it's, can we afford it? How are we gonna afford it? Where are you gonna go down the road here? Because, again, over the last few years, I think we've built some minor fund balance where fund balance is okay. You can probably absorb this for 1 year. A couple surprises to me were that revenue limit 45 and that 235 of outside contracts, I didn't see that one coming, because I thought we had created quite a bit of a capacity within, how we shuffled staff this year, and then with the healthcare piece of that, it was a surprise. Again, you're at the mercy of what's gonna happen with the legislature this next fall and winter, what they're gonna provide for us. And many districts are facing the same issue as what's gonna happen now. Are we gonna get some increased funding? Because, we're gonna be out of ESSER money. I don't think ESSER 5, 6, 7, 8 are down the road anywhere. So we're gonna have to rely on what happens at the legislature. With that though, I think you're gonna need a very detailed plan and work on it this fall, how you're gonna reduce expenditures going into the 23-24 year, because, we just scratched the surface with the shuffling we did. And again, if you're gonna face this kind of increase again the following year, you've gotta make some changes. You just have to. I don't think you're gonna wanna absorb it and whack that fund balance down any lower, but you've got a cushion here where, from my vantage point, you can absorb it for a year. But then, again, develop a detailed plan on how you're gonna create a balanced budget next fall. Legislature meets, you'll know what you have, and if they don't come through, you know what you gotta do ahead of time, because there's, timetables when we have to reduce staff and notify them. So everything's in motion, ready to go when the legislature says, here's what you're gonna get or not gonna get. Again, that's just what I'm seeing.
Dave, are these contracts set in stone?
No. No.
I mean, is there any movement, possible movement on those?
It's always possible, yeah. In Blue Ribbon's case, we haven't increased what we paid them since they started. And so, their case is, with inflation coming up, a lot of our people drive from the city, gas is so high, we need to pay them more. And that, certainly we understand that. If they were district employees, we would be saying the same thing. And it's similar with bus drivers. We need to be paying them more to keep up. How can we get drivers on our buses? And then additionally, we do have the fuel escalator, which is currently not in our favor.
I'm just wondering, because we have 230,000 in our contracts, utilities, I don't know how much utilities are part of that, but for our Blue Ribbon and bus drivers, but I think we have a whole heck of a lot more staff that we're only gonna give them 300,000, so it seems to me not to even be close to percentages. If we're only gonna give our teachers 3% or our staff 3%, it seems like we're giving the rest of the people a lot higher than that.
Well, that's not just people though, that's the cost of fuel.
Well, so I asked, I don't know how much the fuel is
Yeah,
adding that, but fuel was only like,
it's fuel, it's supplies, and none of these escalators are set in stone. This is requests. This is what we need. Somerset, can you meet this? And our option is to say no. We have said no in the past, and you will notice if there's a lot of turnover with custodial, you will notice that. Certainly setups and events become really difficult as well. Maintaining these relationships with these vendors is part of it, and we want them to be successful so we can be successful. Certainly, I understand what you're saying, where the priority, you want the priority to be our staff, absolutely. The utilities, we attack it as best we can from an efficiency and cost savings perspective, but especially gas is up. So,
the numbers that I think we've been shared with from other districts are higher than 3%.
They're roughly 3 to 5.
Yeah, so.
Then compensation increases?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
well, and that's another thing we're waiting for, is McGrath, as far as I know, is currently doing the comparison with all districts around us. So we'll know soon, where do we sit? Because yeah, we can say, I've heard from New Richmond and Hudson and Osceola, at St. Croix Central, all the percentages that they're giving to their employees. But we don't necessarily know exactly where we fall once that is all taken into account, and we will very soon. And then we can say, hey, we're behind, or we're right on track right now, then we'll know.
In my opinion is I think we need to do something before McGrath. We've been talking about that for
Right.
months.
No,
I mean, I think,
I
I'd like to
agree.
see something added. I don't know, I'm torn on the step in 1.5, or no step in 3, or step in 3. Because I think this, even this is behind, but the question is how do we absorb that? Is it possible?
So this, you know, as we know, this compounds. So next year, it's base building. When we look at our revenue side, if we're talking about an extra $700,000 in ESSER money, each of these 2 fiscal years that we've gotten, that we need that from the state, and we need an increase, right? Because we're deficit with that. That's what we need the state to provide us, or else we need kind of extreme student membership growth. We still don't know yet. Open enrollment, this is the first year we kind of went negative, where more go out than come in, but maybe next year, is that going to turn around? We don't know yet what our student count will be in the fall, in September. We use a flat number, but if it goes up, that does help our revenue limit calculation. So,
Dave, you're saying that we're gonna get something from McGrath soon? Do you have a,
so she circled back. She had been out of commission for a number of months. We had a group phone call with her. We sent her contacts, and she's had her consultant contacting districts, and we're providing her with additional compensation information that we're using now that she needed to work on her model. So I think it was, for whatever reason, just a pause for a number of months, and now she's actually working on things again. So yeah, I would anticipate the comparison at any time, because that's the first part she's working on, is the comparison among districts.
Did she give you a deadline? Due date? Did she give you a date?
No.
So we know it was gonna be at least this. We know that. So, like, my opinion is let's move forward with something, and when that comes back, we can adjust it again. Because you know it's not gonna be,
It's not gonna be less.
it's not gonna be less.
In our first conversation with Victoria, she said, you better be ready to put 2 to 4% on. That was back, our initial whenever we started in January with her, so we kind of saw that coming. But if we went at 3%, we would be on the lower end from what I've seen so
That's
far
what I meant too.
of increases. We just would be.
And I don't like not giving a step either, because that to me doesn't, the whole point of that step, you know, you can say it's not years, but we all know it equates to years when people get hired here, when we're looking at new people, especially now when we bring new people in. You know, the clause in the handbook, it says if you're at 5, we don't hire people, the superintendent can hire someone up to step 5. And if it goes past that, it has to be a board approved hire. And I could just see this, because to get better people, we're probably gonna have to pump them up. I mean, we know that, to get the people we want. I don't want us to give 3, and then people say, what the heck? All right, I'm going to the place that just gave 4 because they're higher, and like you said, we could wait on the graph, but that,
So if you added a step and a 3, looking at, well, at least a 170, probably closer to 200.
Well, a percent we say is around 100.
I think you're saying.
If you added the
3%,
step and 3%.
Yeah,
You get the step at 170, but that's at current schedule.
so we got 3%.
500,000 total?
491.
Right.
Maybe.
That's one calculation you didn't have on here. What would a
Yeah, so I mean, like you said,
step and
500,000.
step and 3% would be?
So then we're like $800,000 over budget.
I know,
Or
which is,
850.
Close.
So,
I mean,
Dave,
everyone's-
Mark
I agree with
is
you though,
talking.
Bruce. That step, I don't like the idea of saying,
we're just
oh,
raising.
we're going up 3%, but we're not going up a step, because really, to some people,
That's less.
That's
it's-
1%
yeah.
for probably, I don't know, the majority, but
it sounds good, but
probably
really
1% of what more they would have made, and they're gonna say, for how much everything's gone up, it's gone up more than
Right.
that.
Well, that's, if you do that, that's at least 3% for, let's see. Is it 115, Jody?
There's 115 total, 87,
87 of 115 teachers, we
A
get at least
step.
3. Yep, so-
28 are already at the top, so there's not gonna be any movement.
Well, they get 1.5. And that's-
Right,
and
but there's
that's-
not gonna be any step movement, I'm sorry, yeah, there wouldn't be a step movement for 28 teachers, because they're at the top of our schedule.
170 is probably right, I guess.
Thanks.
Dave, Mark keeps talking about, that we've been able to add dollars to fund balance.
Well, we've had some increases of fund balance over the last couple of years, I believe we have.
Some up, some down.
Yeah.
So I don't suppose you have right on your piece of paper there what the net is on that.
Well, we're at about 4 million right now, about 20%. That's where we're at right now. As far as the history, I have it right on my computer if you want that, but, and in my tenure here, we've certainly increased, overall in my 11 years here, but the last few years it's been up and down.
So around 20%.
We're at 20%, that's our budget right now,
And I think we have a policy that says we have to be within
15 to 25.
15 to 25. So right now, we're right in the middle. And if we took 800,000 in deficit spending, do you know what that would put us percentage?
Well, you divide by the expenditure, so it depends on our total, what our overall budget ends up being. I mean, likely we're staying above 15.
Divided by 19,
We'd be close.
16.8, 17%. I mean, whatever.
Which would bring us down to
What
what,
our number is,
3.2?
that's 19 million.
3.2.
We are, and 3.2.
So that's close to our bottom range.
But doable. For 1 year.
But not sustainable.
No, you're right.
Well,
Not
but two
sustainable
things,
if we don't get.
But the
three
state's
things,
gotta come
three things
through,
would
we
have to
gotta-
happen to sustain it though. You either need increased kids, you need the legislature to act, or you better have a good plan on how you're gonna right-size the ship. Because you'll burn through that fund balance in a hurry if you don't make some adjustments, you just will.
Right.
But I mean, sorry, 170,000 really gonna change that?
Change what?
You mean just doing
Change that
3%
number,
versus doing
you know.
3% and a plan
Yeah,
change?
so 3.2, so we go to 4 divided by, so now we get a percent. So basically that 170 is a percent, so we'd be 17, 18 instead of 16, 17.
But it shows the teachers that they're valued, the staff are valued, because they're getting
That's
staff
what I mean,
and they're
I
getting 3%.
We need a lot of help here. 170,000, not nothing, but it's, hey, we're behind you, this sucks, we got a lot of work to do, the state has a lot of work to do, but, I don't know.
Because it's 640 or it's 840.
Roughly.
I mean-
Basically.
Roughly.
Right. So what is, right, what you're saying is what is 200,000? Well, I mean, well, when it comes to, but if it comes to staff retention or, you know,
On
showing
19,
staff.
on 19 million.
On,
We're
exactly,
19
on
million.
the big picture.
What's, that's a percent, 1% of our
We're
budget.
increasing our deficit by 30% there.
You know, and the reality is, we're gonna need to look long and hard then if we're in the same position next year of cutting staff. And that's gonna be, you know, what is our dramatic change going to be?
At some
This
point, you've
becomes-
gotta create a balanced budget. You have to.
So we, through attrition, saved 360,000 this year. So,
The attrition was close to net. I mean, it was mainly because we didn't fill the 4 FTE.
the 450,
The 4 teacher FTE.
right?
We can
I don't
always,
suppose you have any idea, Jody, of people who have contacted you who are looking at retiring next year?
I
We
think
can-
I know one, but like, kind of off the top of my head, that is pretty confident. But I wouldn't predict anybody when you look at what the market is doing and what people's, like if you're planning on your retirement and all of a sudden that's down, you may work an extra 5 years.
We're making some assumptions on
Yeah, I
people
mean,
that we think are going to, but nothing in concrete.
yeah.
So, you're talking about staff morale and going up in percentage. What do you think is gonna happen with staff morale if we're cutting? We're cutting staff, and not only are we affecting staff morale, but we're affecting the community with our class sizes. I don't know what the answer is.
Well, we increased some class sizes and quite a few and gave people more work, and we're only gonna give them the bare minimum increase.
Yeah, I'm talking about to continue it.
Well, we gotta, that's a big one. But I think it's gonna be a year long. We're gonna have a year to go through and hopefully work with Dave on some of this, each school, say,
Where can we get creative? Where
Yeah.
can we
I know
look
it's.
at places that aren't gonna affect our students as much, but still be creative as far as cutting some of those funds? But I know that that's a discussion like that I've had
And
with
whatever,
people as far
regardless
as.
what you do, I'd say by next November, you should have a very detailed plan on, doing analysis of our programming, what other districts in our conference have for programming, where are we an outlier here, we're spending this much on these positions that no one else has, then we gotta look in the mirror and say, you know what, okay, we gotta right size this somehow, but like I say, that has to be done next fall. Because then you're ready when the legislature acts, and, then you're ready to roll. Then last Friday, you were there, I spoke to the staff, just to let them know where we're at budget-wise, and, we're gonna have a couple of years of tough going here until things right-size after this whole COVID piece and the funding piece gets straightened out. I believe the state will come through once, because there's gonna be a lot of districts in the same position we are in, because they have not increased our funding yet at all. So, hope is never a plan, so as I'm saying, you better, whatever you do now, actually the fund balance is about $500,000 more than I thought it was. So if you're coming down to 3.2 if you do this,
We could go down to 2.9.
I wouldn't do it again, but I would,
If we wanna stay at 15%, we could go down to 2.9 million, so we could lose another 300,000 of fund balance the next year and still be above our 15%.
I think the legislature has to act. I think that we've got to do something. I agree, we've got to have a plan and know we can't do this again. But I think we all have to believe the legislature, because everybody's in this boat. I agree.
if you have that plan, it makes it easier to go to your local legislature and say, hey, look what I have to do if you don't come through for us. Here it is right here, black and white.
I think we need a billboard right out, the new development on the highway. Homes as low as such and such, close to fabulous schools. Move here now.
As this town builds up, your tax base is gonna change, which in theory should make it, easier to pass some type of referendums, whether it's finance or bonding. But again, we're probably 3 years out from seeing massive amounts of kids coming in here and that whole thing playing out. So it's a good thing. If none of this building was gonna happen around here, I'd have a whole different outlook on this thing too, because then you got a double whammy coming at it. Here we've got some hope with all this coming in.
It's the plan.
Well, that's a lot to chew on for tonight.
Yeah.
You just got this tonight. Think about it. I think we should have some, discussion at the next meeting. And whatever questions you have, get them into Dave as far as any of the specific numbers and that. And, I was gonna say I could frame you out what I think is a plan, but that's really doesn't make a difference what I think anymore after June 30th. So I can pass on to Shannon, what, my thoughts are. I think you're gonna be okay. It's just that you might have to make some tough decisions.
When would we need action in order to have this effective for, what, August contract?
So our fiscal year, July 1, our year-round employees, that's their new fiscal year. So if there was a wage increase in place, it would start July 1. So if you want something in place for that, we can approve it at the June meeting. I believe Rod we can get that updated, or have just, one pay period retro pay possibly if it's a little
Yeah,
too
with the
quick.
June meeting, is it June 27th?
27.
And July 3rd being, like, with that whole 4th of July thing in there, I don't think bank
Well,
files,
possibly
yeah,
if we know that that's going to be
Yeah.
approved, like we can work on it.
we can work on it, but if we don't, yeah.
But if not, they could get it the second pay period in retro, the first
Right.
pay period.
Yeah,
So,
Correct.
but new teachers' contract pay, like, the teacher contract pay changes effective September 5th. And when most of our paras and stuff, it's August, September,
So if you want something in place for July 1, you could act right now and tell us this is what we're going to be doing. If you want a specific scenario in the snapshot budget we're approving at the business session, I need to know that so I can build that exact number into that snapshot.
Could we see where, if we added a step and 3%, just to know where that is and what that does?
Yep.
and hope in the next 2 weeks, we would hear something from Victoria, right, Victoria?
Yeah, I'll check
And
it out.
that, maybe we could see where we are compared to other people, for years and stuff. But again, that's right, but a lot of years, we don't approve this until October. And people get retro for the first, 3 months, which is not,
Yeah, I'm just-
that's not what I wanna do at all.
Right, I'm just
That's-
thinking, okay, if we did something now, does that say something to our staff so that they don't leave us in the next couple of months? Why wait, if we're gonna do something, why wait till then? Let's do it now, so we send the message that we are behind and we're doing everything we can.
It will help.
Yep.
I'd like to wait until we get stuff on the June 27th. I like that number, I wanna know that one, cause I don't just want a partial, here, let's get the information on that date, and then I think we,
Make a decision,
Make
in
a
worst
decision
case, it's
then.
1 week retro, or 1 pay period retro.
If you
No,
have
that has
if
to
you
be.
have any questions in between now and then.
yeah, we can have some back and forth, and really, and again, hopefully she can pull something together.
I can send out that number, this week to you.
Yeah.
That'd be
But-
great.
That would be helpful.
Do you want that, so I know you can't have a conversation via email at that point, but do you want the steps plus 3% built into the preliminary budget for June? Knowing, again, this is not binding, this is just our practice to say this is where we're at, we approve this. Is that the number you want built into that budget?
I think we should.
I do.
I would say yes.
Yes.
I mean, cause like, worst case, and I mean, not worst case, but if we're talking tonight, that's kind of the worst case we brought up, or most expensive case we brought up, I guess.
So that'll give us the highest solid number, or most solid number, right? So we can work on going into the fall.
The highest deficit.
Yeah, right.
Nice.
Investment,
You have to think of it as an investment.
it is.
Which again, if this would go through, that would put us, so 3, 4, and, so it wouldn't quite be 5%, but we'd be around that 4.5+%, average for the whole district. For wage.
But as you said, we're not the only district doing this. Every
No.
district is gonna be in our same shoes. Every teacher, every person right now is facing inflation and higher gas rates to come to work and higher grocery bills. And so hopefully you just look at that coming through. But, our inflation rate's way more than 3%, or, in some of these cases 5, where the stuff's in lanes, so. Yeah, that
Alright.
number would be great.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
So that'll give us everything we need to potentially take action in 2 weeks.
And we'll
Get
put
it
this
out.
back on the agenda on the June 27th meeting.
Should it be 2 items or?
Just put it as district compensation,
I don't know, Dave?
since we've went through
So,
or combine them.
our practice is to approve the preliminary budget, which is just an expenditure line item. It will include this amount.
I think it's 2 items.
So 2 items?
Yeah, because that's his budget and then.
Right,
and then
approving a wage
compensation.
increase is a
Okay,
separate item.
Yeah. So I think.
perfect. Any other questions or discussion?
Thanks, Dave.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jody.
Okay, next up is future board meeting dates. There was a couple changes made to this today, but if you click on the link for the future board meeting dates, those are listed starting with July work session, regular session, and then goes through next summer. So most of them are the second and fourth Monday of the month, but then there are a couple unique, different changes. The September includes the budget hearing and annual meeting, September 12th. And then could be a couple, some of them then when you get later are the first and third, just kind of depending on where they landed.
Can I ask about the October one?
Yes.
What was the reason for moving that? Because I think we were always, so our big goal is to try to keep 2 weeks between the meetings.
Right. Alicia, was that one that was on the notes to change?
If you're talking about notes for me, it was not.
I don't know why. It can get changed to whatever you guys
Yeah,
want.
this is at the point where we can make changes, so.
There's gonna be at least one that's gonna end up being back-to-back because, so if you change October and November to the 2nd and 4th, then you're gonna have December 5th.
But I think just changing October would be fine and give you 2 weeks to November one.
17th and 24th,
Because then you'd have the 31st and then,
the 7th,
Yeah.
okay.
Was that because the October 24th was a teacher in service? Did that have to play with that at all? No
We have
students?
lots of meetings on in-service days, that shouldn't matter.
I'm guessing the March one is due to
Spring break.
spring break.
Spring break is the week of the 13th.
Okay. This makes sense.
So Bruce, are you proposing that be the 10th and the 24th instead of the 3rd and the 17th?
Yeah, if no one has any conflicts. I mean, I don't keep it there, it's fine, but I mean, I know we were trying to keep it.
No, it's nice, I think, to have a week.
So,
in
yeah, I'd
between.
say the 10th and 24th, as long as no one has a,
That doesn't push it towards Christmas at all, does it?
no,
No, we're
October would be
gonna
the only
change
one
the
that would move.
November.
So November would stay and December would stay the same, just October would move. Right?
Oh. Okay, so Alicia, will you go ahead and change those
Yep.
2 dates? Any other dates that you guys see on this meeting dates that there's conflicts with? I know that there was one that was in January with, that was changed earlier today with a
Yeah.
conflict with a legal holiday. I didn't realize that Monday. Any other questions or dates of concern?
Any days you can think of in the school, Shannon, we need to watch for?
I can take a look.
I know when we looked at it, we pulled up the school calendar as well as far as conferences and those types of things, so. The 2023 district calendar that's published right now, there's no conflicts with. Okay. Well, we will keep moving on then. So the next item of business is topics for action.
Excuse me, Lacey,
Yeah,
can we pull item C just so we can have some discussion?
oh, yeah, you wanna skip down to the use of remaining bond funds?
Yeah, but you can go ahead with the rest of it.
Okay, sure, so the personnel update, is there a,
I'll make a motion.
Yeah, I have a question on that.
yes, Marge?
I know that during the meetings that we had for the superintendent search, there were people there that were unhappy with how the staff was shuffled around, and they blamed the board for it. On personnel update, I want to know that all of those have been posted. I heard that one of them was not posted, and in our employee handbook, 1.3.38 says that every opening should be posted. And why wasn't that one posted? The one for,
In the
special
personnel
education
update?
teacher. And I wanted to know what the qualifications were for that, because I know that she is a speech and language pathologist, but does she have teaching credentials, or do you need teaching credentials for that job? It would be good to check into that, but, it doesn't sound like anybody else got a chance to apply for that job when it opened up.
Well, I can just say in general, you know, staffing realignments and that, we make those. If we have new positions are always posted. We, you know, if we don't, we screwed up somewhere. But especially like in special ed and what have you, I'd have to talk to Abby to
It's an
get the
open
detail.
position, it wasn't a new position.
It's an existing position where we retain the right to move people, reassign people. When we did these other changes, we opened it up and out of courtesy to say, you know, who's interested in these positions? Now, there's some that, and I'm assuming this is what happened with the special ed, is, you know, these are very tight license type areas, and we're dealing with fractions of time, and I'm just assuming that Abby didn't have a lot of moves to make to fill this. You know, one of the things we tried to do this year, and we were successful at, no one lost a job. And we were able to create this capacity. You know, if we didn't create this you can imagine where we'd be if we didn't create that $360,000 capacity. But fully aware of when we open up positions, new positions, they're posted. So I can check with Abby. Again, this wasn't a new position, this was a reassignment. You know, as she's shuffling, and that's well within our purview to do this. You know, as long as they hold the proper license, you know, we can't force someone into a position where they're not licensed for it.
Maybe we should adjust or do something with 1.3.38, that policy, to include that then. Because in there it says if there's a new position open, everybody gets a chance at it. But I'm hearing people didn't get a chance at it.
It wasn't a new position.
An open position.
It was an open position that we reassign people to. And we have to be able to operate that way, we just do. You know, and again, these other positions, we took it upon ourselves, say, you know what, let's check with everyone and see, and they weren't open positions, they were reassignments, but who wants to do this? And, you know, we were able to find people that were willing to do that.
Well, I'll have to have people come and talk to you because
Yeah.
I'm tired of being blamed.
Yeah, send them my way.
Because decisions were made to, that affected people's lives, and they're not happy.
Well, they have a job. Just send them my way, and I've spoken to groups many times about this, and what we're faced and what we're gonna be facing. This is just the, you know, again, this could be the tip of the iceberg. I don't know, I can't predict that, but, my position has always been, if we can protect jobs, we're gonna do it.
So the other question, Marge, was with that position, that early childhood JK special ed teacher, the person moving into that position had a different licensure. Do they, assuring that they have the licensure for that particular assignment?
Well, again, I'd have to check with Pam and Abby on that to see, they either have to have it or they availability to get it and willingness to get it.
I think
Or
the
we're
email
making
said
one
that
move.
she's working
In
on it.
process, because I believe it was says, okay.
Because because we've got one move that the person agreed to get certified. That's-
Did you still want to make your motion, Bruce?
I'll make my motion to approve A one and two, and B one.
Is there a second?
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Do you want more discussion on
I
that?
just wanna make sure, I think before Marge even spoke on it, I think we put it
Right.
on there. And then she can speak and then we make her.
Right. So I was a little fast in that, sorry. Is there any before, now we're all in favor, aye, but is there any other discussion? Any opposed? Okay, and we'll look into that other piece as well. Okay, moving on to C, the use of remaining bond funds, Mark?
Yeah, just a couple comments on that. We had a little, I think it's a wrinkle. We're assuming that we had about 325,000 roughly in leftover funds. We're, I don't want to say, we're questioning about 90,000 if it is a charge or not, which would bring us down some on that. So what I think, I would say not to approve these projects. However, I would say, well, I think you can approve a couple of them, but I think we need to prioritize them because there's some things we could do right away that, I think we need to. And if I was prioritizing this, I would say that number 5, that elementary, the HVAC pieces need to be taken care of right away. Those are, we got some leaky valves and couplings and things that will, tide us over. The second thing is that scoreboard, because that's kind of, it's a time bomb. And I would I would approve those 2 for right now until we see where the funds come in. And the next thing I would go for is that elementary playground.
Okay, I have a question. Why would you prioritize the scoreboard over the playground when on an earlier document you said the playground was a liability issue?
We've got 2 playgrounds that are in the same shape. We need to replace them. We do. I mean, you could pick whatever you want here, but I'm looking at I'm assuming we're gonna be able to do one of the playgrounds, but right now, I still think that scoreboard's is gonna go. So
That 100,000 for the playground, is that for both or is that just one of them?
that's just one of
That
them.
just gets you one.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to do both playgrounds with us,
That would be 200,000.
I know,
If they're 100,000 each?
yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Pam's, I think, that one is better than.
And the pond fence, that's already in the works?
We had to do that, yeah.
Yeah.
We
We'd
were
have
dealing
to
with the
approve
city
that
on
one.
that because of the angle and the hill right there, and that's scheduled to go in July.
So how much do we have, Mark? 250?
Well, we should have close to 3.25. 'Cause I think it was 295, and then we're getting 45 or 50 back from Market Johnson. But there was a piece in the accounting that Dave was questioning, that we're trying to get a hold of Randy to see if it's even factual or not, because from what we understand in our conversations, that we have roughly 3.25 or more to take care of these projects. That's what we've been going on all along, but he needs to, make sure, because we don't want to go over on any of this stuff. But the sooner we get going on a few of these things, we'll get them done.
So we might only have 2.25?
Right. Worst case scenario, we may only have that.
So. What's wrong?
And when will we know those numbers for sure?
Well, I thought we'd know it today, but Randy from Market Johnson did get back to me. So as soon as he gets back to me, I'll know for sure.
So,
Can I make a motion to approve items C3 and C5 for the time being? And C4? C3, 4, and 5 at this point.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
no, hold on.
Because discussion.
Discussion, sorry, I keep forgetting the discussion.
Because we talked so much before the motion.
I'm sorry. So I need to do it in between the motion and all in favor.
So,
Discussion, Bruce, sorry.
I hear, we have at least 225. So I would like to add, I would amend your motion. I wanna add the high school PA system in there. That still only puts us at 210,000.
I would second
So
that.
that puts us
amendment.
under still, and hope that the scoreboard comes with our referendum as part of that piece,
Or with our extra money.
or with our extra money that we would find with Mark and Johnson.
Because if it all comes through, you can do all these. But it's
So-
just that wrinkle came out and.
So I
Which
would,
technically could happen at our next meeting.
I know that the scoreboard would be
Yeah.
great, but
But sooner.
So
get
Bruce
this-
made
I'd
an
agree with that.
amendment.
I would like to amend-
And I seconded it.
Is there discussion with that?
So technically, you have to vote on the amendment first, and then the new motion.
Okay, so is there,
So what was your amendment, about what? which one?
to include item C2.
Two, okay.
so the amended motion is to include C2, 3, 4, and 5 for the use of the remaining bond funds. Now we can do it. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? So that motion carries.
That
With
amendment.
the amendment of the first
But
motion.
now do we have to
Now you have to approve the whole new
now
motion,
approve the motion? Because the amendment has to.
pass first.
the amendment-
So I will take a motion to approve the motion for 2, 3, 4, and 5 for use of remaining bond funds. Did I say that right?
So moved.
Second?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Trent's gonna be so upset.
Thank you.
Well, hopefully we could add that even next meeting.
I'll be up there, Matt, I'm nominating you, we're gonna be flipping the
Holding
score.
the,
Yeah.
Swearing with a
hey.
flashlight.
That's what's gonna happen.
You're gonna pull your Jeep up there and flash the board so we can see it, see the flippers.
We're using candles, but that's okay.
How far out, like the elementary playground, how far out is installation
know
of that?
That I
That could
don't know. I
be
just don't
24.
know.
Okay. Next is once around the table.
Scoreboard may have the same thing.
Lori, do you wanna start tonight?
Sure. I understand there was a staff luncheon recognition program honoring years of service and staff retiring from the district. And I'd like to offer my congratulations to those staff members as well. I was disappointed that not all board members were included in the invitation, and I hope that in the future, all board members are included in such celebrations. Thanks.
Ian?
It was great seeing everybody at the parade for Peace Soup Days in downtown. Good time. That's it.
I have nothing.
Matt?
Nothing tonight.
I have nothing as well. Bruce?
Nope.
Sheree?
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
On the regular session, can we get the state track and field people here? And then can we have like cookies or cake, please?
You can bake it.
Sure, I mean,
At the next.
my wife can bake, yes. I can show up.
You can ask Erin if she would like to.
She would donate her
That's what a
time.
good husband would do, right?
Bruce, at the next.
At the 27th.
27.
Just a recognition, I know we were trying to get back to that
Right,
again, and we have two kids go to
participants.
state,
yeah.
2 students go to state, so.
We look at them.
Now I'm good.
You good? Sheree? You're good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mark?
And then, what was that? Oh, Marge, sorry. Marge, do you have anything for what's around the table?
No, I don't.
Okay, thanks, Marge. Oh, and then just to add, at our next meeting on the 27th, there is a listening session, and that was changed, so instead of being 5 o'clock, it's 5:30, so a half hour prior. Okay, next I will take a motion to move into closed session of the board pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85 for consideration of employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the government has jurisdiction and exercises responsibility. Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We will now be moving into closed session.
Thank you.